Today on
Doomed!
when misinformation actors and white supremacists get deplatformed and banned from the major tech hubs and social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and elsewhere, they often find home somewhere else. And that's quickly becoming peer-to-peer technology outlets. Today on the show, we will discuss what white supremacists are doing with this peer-to-peer technology and what we can do about it. And without any further ado, well, actually first, patreon.com/MattBinder to support this show, youtube.com/MattBinder to subscribe to the YouTube channel for the live stream, and doomedpod.com for the audio version of this show, which comes out after this live show. Without any further ado, let me bring up my guest for tonight. And once again, I'm using the wrong feed here. 1 second. How does this always happen to me? Always some sort of tech issue here on this show, but that's okay. Joining me now. Oh my God, I can't believe all these tech issues. Okay, here we go, finally. Joining me now is data scientist and activist focusing on disinformation and the far right, Emmi Bevensee of Rebellious Data. Emmi, thank you so much for joining me on the show tonight.
Hey, Matt.
I really appreciate you coming on tonight, and also for dealing with this tech issue. I don't know what's going on. This happened last week, too, on this show. Something happens when I cut from the intro to my guest, and it just, everything goes haywire. But it's now fixed. No more problems. Now we can just get down to the nitty-gritty of all this. So Emmi, you put out this great report, and I want to get the name of the report absolutely right, because I think people should search this. There's a link on the Patreon page and in the YouTube description, so if you're lazy and just want to click on something, it's there. But if you like searching on Google or whatever, you could go to just type in the decentralized web of hate. White supremacists are using peer-to-peer technology. Are we prepared? Now, Emmi, can you break down this report? And that's what we're going to do tonight, break down the report. But before we do that, can you explain to people who might not be familiar exactly what is peer-to-peer technology? Because I think when most people hear about peer-to-peer technology, if they're even aware, they think of old school type software or apps like Kazaa or LimeWire. And maybe they're thinking to themselves, wait, what? Neo-Nazis are like David Duke is using like Kazaa to spread his white supremacist message? But it's not exactly that.
No, it's pretty much that. Just Nazis are downloading shit on LimeWire.
Except it's labeled like NoFX unreleased hits or something like that. Yeah. And you download it and it's David Duke's worst.
He's just mumbling for 3 hours. Yeah. So there's actually a lot of like debate and inside baseball about like what is decentralized versus what is distributed, what is the D-web, peer-to-peer. There's all these different terms bouncing around. But the basic idea that you need to understand is that when you go on the internet, your computer has an address, kind of like your mailbox is your address of your house. That's called an IP address. And your computer uses that address to communicate usually with a server. And a server is like, just picture a really big computer in a room or, a whole field of these really big computers somewhere. And your computer's like, hey, can I have some data for this website? And the server's like, yeah, bro, here's some memes. And that's how it works. Everyone at once is asking the server for little packets of data. But the internet wasn't always like that. When the internet was being kind of created, there was a lot of different proposals for what direction it could ultimately go in. And a lot of them were much more decentralized than this kind of like, massively centralized system where everyone's asking this one point for data. And so there's kind of been a resurgence in technologies that are more decentralized. And what I mean by that is, well, an easy example, I think, to understand it is the technology scuttlebutt, which is like well, I'll say something different, which is that there's protocols, and a protocol is like, it's like a way for, it's like a piece of software. It's like a language kind of that you can speak and communicate with each other. And so scuttlebutt is like this protocol which lets devices talk to each other. And on top of it, you can build anything. So like mostly what's been built has been social media platforms. And so like instead of asking a server somewhere in Silicon Valley or whatever, hey, can I have the data for this website? Each computer now will just host a bunch of the data for like its friends. Like I'll keep all the stories of my friends in my head. And then everyone, when they see me, you can ask, hey, do you have any new gossip about so and so? And I'll be like, oh yeah, here's a little bit of new gossip about that. Oh, here's a little bit of new information about that person. And so in this way, we're all becoming the servers. So it's kind of hard to show that without like, a diagram. I should have brought like a little piece of paper.
Right.
But instead
Right.
of like a peer, the server at the top and all of us at the bottom as computers, we're all creating our own system of communication.
Right. And
And
so I'm trying to think of what I guess a more recent other than Kazaa and LimeWire, a more recent like example. I guess the Pirate Bay, the way
I
people
mean,
get.
torrenting is arguably a peer-to-peer technology, because we're all saying like, hey, can I have little pieces of this data, of this file of like Gossip Girl or whatever, you know?
Right.
And no, just kidding. No one would ever steal intellectual property.
that
Things that are
that
things that are
gossip.
illegal don't happen.
Right, and that Gossip Girl download again. It's David Duke mumbling, unfortunately.
um, yeah. So like certainly torrenting is an example. But there's a lot of like, there's this huge ecosystem of these new technologies. Maybe another infamous one is blockchain technologies. Like everyone's heard of Bitcoin now, even if you don't know what it is. Even if I don't know if you've seen that meme where they're like, my girlfriend doesn't understand blockchain. Can someone explain it to her? And then someone's like, oh yeah, blockchain is like running your car for 4 hours so that it can solve Sudokus that can help you buy heroin on the deep web. that's my
Yeah.
that's my short explanation of Bitcoin.
Right, and by the way, it just hit 20K for the first time. So I mean,
But
I I wish. I mean, maybe back in the day, I not thought it was so dumb, just so I could have a little bit of Bitcoin. But yeah. Oh
yeah,
well.
so like, blockchain technologies are just like, it's just like a mathematical proof of who sends what to what. And like my wallet has this much of this coin or whatever, this much, and I gave it to this person, and we all mathematically agree that that happened. And since it's happening in a decentralized way, like all these different, their logs are being, the ledger of what's being exchanged is being distributed across many places. So I say it's like a peer-to-peer technology.
Right. Right. So I think even a layperson has a at least a rough idea of what peer-to-peer technology is at this point. I really do think you've laid it out quite well. So let's now jump into what this report focuses on, because I mean it's something that I think a lot of people who have paid attention to the far right have noticed, but I don't know if everyone has even noticed. I mean, and of course, there's people who haven't noticed at all, and that's the broader public here. But even people who pay attention, I don't think they've noticed just how many facets of different sort of platforms have been replaced by peer-to-peer technology for white supremacists and the far right. And you really break down a number of different, forms of technology that the white supremacists have been able to use peer-to-peer technology for. So let's just jump right in. How basically are white supremacists using peer-to-peer technology? Is it basically their last way to reach out to the broader public and of course each other, to spread their hateful messages after being deplatformed from so many mainstream social media sites, and I mean, not even just social media sites, like PayPal has dropped a number of these actors, being that PayPal doesn't want to fund these hateful groups. So it's really, I mean, they've lost everything that you and I use to basically exist on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to be clear, I support deplatforming of fascists just because I acknowledge that it creates this new field of struggle and investigation. I still think it's a good idea to like get fascists kicked off of their DDoS protection and their payment platforms, and not host them on your podcast and stuff like that. Not your podcast, but
Right.
the broader podcast ether. So I recognize the value of that work. But yeah, so say your whole little dweeby Nazi website is like running on PayPal and you're accepting donations for a long time, and then anti-fascists like find your website and then they openly are just like, hey, can people report this? And then like, thousands of liberals or whatever also like tag in to like support, to write little messages to PayPal being like, hey, I think you should take this down. And then PayPal bans you. Suddenly you've lost most of your income stream for your dweeby little project. And so what they mostly do then, what's probably the most common form of like fascist use of peer-to-peer technology, is then they just start setting up cryptocurrency donations, like websites like the Daily Stormer, Fascist Forge. Pretty much any modern fascist site that you go to will have like a Bitcoin donation and maybe an Ethereum donation. And if they're more privacy conscious, maybe like a Monero wallet that people can send money to. And that helps to protect their identities and the identities of people who are giving them money. And so
now, do you find, being that you just brought that up, I just want to ask, do you find that white supremacists and far right figures who use this technology, do you find that they sort of get into it based on necessity, and that these extra privacy features are just an additional bonus that come with it? Or do you find that they're actually moving towards it specifically for the privacy features?
I mean, both. Yeah, both are happening at the same time. Like, obviously, for example, the US government is not that active in its like taking on of white supremacist groups, but to some extent the police will the FBI will occasionally arrest like prominent Nazis from groups, and so they are like paranoid in their own right, to the extent they're not actively collaborating with state forces.
Right.
As we've seen extensively, right?
Yeah.
But they're super paranoid. Like, I was joking with someone recently because Adam Waffen got infiltrated by both the FBI and anti-fascist groups at the same time, and we were joking like, man, this Adam Waffen channel must have been 70% infiltrators from different groups and law enforcement agencies from the beginning.
Right.
So they do have a reason to be paranoid. And so, yeah, they are seeking these things out. And there's like all these guides on how to use decentralized technology. You can find the little discussion board chats around it and stuff like that.
Right. And I guess their biggest worry, even beyond law enforcement, is in a sense where they have to worry about law enforcement. If they're not law enforcement themselves, I guess their worry is also that it'll come out that they are, an individual is part of one of these groups, and they'll possibly lose their income stream, their job, their livelihood.
and their family. Like normal people don't like Nazis, you know what I mean?
Right, right,
Normal people are not like internet weeboo Nazis, you know.
right. Well, you never know. There could be a whole. I'm sure there's at least a few actually white supremacist weeboo families out there. You know what I mean? Like they met on one of the boards and lived happily ever after with two kids. And I mean, there was that story and I'll never forget it, of that the Nazi father who named his kid Adolf Hitler. I mean, there was a mother involved who had no problem with that, obviously. I mean,
Oh yeah. Like
yeah,
people be doing intergenerational stupid shit for sure.
yep. So
Yeah.
a lot of, and like I mentioned earlier, I think maybe the fundraising part of all this is the one most people are familiar with.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, it's still surprising, I think, whenever it comes out that what's his face, Weave,
Weave.
was when his like cryptocurrency wallet funds were made public. And it was something like he had like tens of thousands of dollars from donations in his Bitcoin wallet. It's like, that's when it gets a little bit mind blowing. I mean, not everyone is making as much as him, but he is one of the bigger figures in that sort of techno Nazi world. But it still is astonishing. But I think that is one area where most people are familiar with how they're using peer to peer. But in your report, you go into some other, and I think people aren't so familiar with some of these other ways that neo-Nazis and white supremacists are using peer-to-peer. Can you go into some of these other non-financial ways?
Yeah, I just want to be clear before I talk about these that I'm not like saying these technologies are inherently bad. I'm just trying to be realistic about the ways that they're going to be used. Like
Right.
actually, I think these projects are super exciting. Like I've hung out with developers from these projects, and for the most part, the developers from these projects are like, "Oh yeah, we hate Nazis, but there are just risks associated with developing new technologies."
Right,
Like,
and one thing to add there too, like we love on our, for more people to understand this, like a lot of people love social media, like for all the complaining about Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, we all spend a lot of time on Facebook, YouTube, and
yeah,
Twitter, and there's there's good things that came out of the internet and social media, and there's bad things that have come out of the internet and social media, but one addendum here I think is that these platforms you're about to discuss, the developers don't always have like total control over them like Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, and
yeah,
Google have over Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
yeah. They certainly don't, but I would argue that like Mark Zuckerberg and them don't really have control over their platforms either. Like as someone who works in the machine learning field, like for example, the problem of automated detection of hate speech content, extremely cursed. Like there are decently smart ways of approaching the problem, but it's kind of inherently cursed. But yeah, so no one controls a peer-to-peer system. That's the point. No one, like these platforms are by and large completely irrepressible. Like you can't like send a subpoena to the server and be like, take it down. There is no server to send a subpoena to. You could seize someone's computer, but the network is resilient. It'll just route around. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, yeah. To an extent, that's what makes these technologies really complicated. But arguably, books have negative externalities. Like Nazis wrote books, so we should ban books. So there's some like element of things like that. Okay, yeah. So some of the other technologies that I talk about in the report are like, for example, file hosting. Like IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, super cool decentralized file sharing program that's being used for all kinds of cool stuff around the world. After the Christchurch terror attack, the manifesto was taken down all across the internet. And so the owner of this like Nazi web hosting service was like, yeah, I'm going to post it on IPFS so no one can ever take it down again. And you could have like some debate about like, can you get rid of these ideas or whatever? But nonetheless, it remains that like, okay, now this exists forever, ostensibly, as long as the internet exists and computers exist. Um, and some of the other ones are like encrypted communications technologies, um, uh, Matrix, which used to be use Riot. Now I think it's called Element, or there's a bunch of other platforms on it. Um, People like I've seen a bunch of different groups associated with like the base and Atomov and stuff like that, being like, oh, you got to join our Riot chat room, and or like go to this link or join. We'll only message you on this app. That being said, of course, centralized apps exist that they use too, like Wire or Signal or something like that.
Right.
Um,
Aren't those
but
a little bit like Signal and Telegram, especially? That's become especially popular with white supremacists and the far right. They're sort of like a. Correct me if I'm wrong. I sort of interpret them as like an in between, where there is a organization or company that has basically like a power over the entire platform. However, they don't really have any power over seeing the messaging. That's between user to user, but they do like host the overall group.
yeah, I would argue that Telegram cannot make that claim, or they have not sufficiently proven to be able to make that claim. Um, and most Telegram messages are not encrypted. You have to like be on a one-on-one message and choose secret chat or whatever. Like those big public Telegram groups, I scrape those. You know what I
Okay,
mean? Like I
right,
create, so it's like they have URLs that I can go to.
right,
You know, but Signal, yeah, there's centralized servers, but it's end-to-end encryption, which just means that they don't have access to your decryption keys. Your decryption keys are stored locally on your device. So when Signal gets subpoenaed, all they can say is whether you have Signal installed, when's the last time you logged in. They can't say like any more metadata than that.
right.
So that
Do they have the power to just ban a user though?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
Maybe someone in the comments will hop in.
right,
I'm not sure. I've heard about Telegram banning channels. Telegram bans channels to some
right.
extent. Maybe theoretically they could. I'm not sure how it would be done. Yeah.
Interesting. So what what was I gonna say? So on these peer to peer message boards and forums, are they basically just treating it how they would treat any other social media platform, or is there something else that they are or are they using this as more of a private channel? Like, are they basically just still trying to voice their opinion on certain issues and spread the word about things, or is it mainly being used to like organize actions?
Yeah. So, I guess the other two categories that are usually that I didn't mention before are like, yeah, social media kind of applications. Um, well, I'll just start with that one. Like social media app, yeah, like Gab, social media applications and like server kind of things like that, like federated server systems. And sometimes those overlap. So an example of that would be the Mastodon federated
Right.
server technology was used by Gab when Gab kept having problems and getting deplatformed. And the Mastodon community is pretty broadly anti-fascist, like the development community. And so they, put out centralized statements asking servers not to federate with Gab. Just for those that don't know, Gab is like a, wink, wink, nudge, nudge free speech platform.
Right.
Um, but there's been a bunch of studies about it that it's just like basically an alt-right echo chamber.
Right.
Um,
It's even worse than Parlor. Like in my opinion, in terms of like if you were compare the two, like there's a lot of like yeah you see these people on Parlor as well, but there's also a lot of just like weird regular MAGA types who are just like
yeah,
a patriot grandpa on there, But on
yeah.
Gab, when you're on Gab, it's usually because you are an upfront, out and out, white supremacist, or at the very least an online reactionary part of some sort of far right community.
Yeah, like there's definitely probably there's a bunch of normie users on Gab too, but but like I've certainly found tons of old Atomwaffen accounts and the base accounts and stuff like that.
Right.
There's no shortage of hardcore niche fash esoteric policy, politics. Someone like just rolled a dice and just randomly generated an identity because they felt like their life was boring.
That would be that would, if you're looking for an app idea, that would be a fantastic app, like a
There's
roll.
there's
Oh,
there's
there
like
is.
what the ideology.store or something like that, and it just randomly generates I forget what the exact link is, but it just randomly generates identities. But that's how I feel studying fascists a lot of times. Like,
Especially now with since the rise of Donald Trump, I feel like there's a whole community of like very confused people who don't know what they believe, and they're taking different things from different places and just combining them into some sort of weird new very specific niche ideologies.
and flipping super rapidly because they don't actually have any ideological coherence, and it's all an aesthetic game to them.
Right. I mean, I feel like I feels like you're almost specifically calling out the Tulsi Gabbard fans. I mean, honestly, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, there's been a problem on the left where like you can be as racist as you want as long as you say free Assange, and people
Yeah.
just give you a pass.
Yeah. I mean, there. If while we're on that, actually, I mean, listen, you can advocate that Julian Assange should not be, tried for what he did with WikiLeaks. But it doesn't mean you have to defend the complete body of work of Julian Assange. Like, if there's a non-journalism or whistleblower or leak-related crime that he is found to be at least accused of, then you don't have to defend him for that part of it. Like let's.
Yeah, another big bulk of my research has been on red brown stuff, which has made me a lot of email enemies. But that's like weird forms of fascist entryism on the left. But I won't get into that.
Maybe another
It's
show.
another yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so there's all these technologies. I'm actually really excited about them. I'm deeply a part of a lot of peer-to-peer communities, but I'm just like trying to ask us to be, realistic about them. Kind of a cool example to mention, like one of the projects that I'm most excited about is I have this friend who like lives in a Quilombo, which is like escaped enslaved people, like semi-autonomous communities in Brazil. And he lives there and he's indigenous, and he works on basically he's trying to make decentralized internet infrastructure for different indigenous nations and quilombos in Brazil, particularly in the Amazon jungle. So he like goes around with little like, sort of like cheap knockoff telephone poles, and uses all these like open source software that he's developing, and then is basically trying to make infrastructure so that in the event of collapse or like racist denial of access to internet or communications infrastructure, they can have these cheap, solar powered, resilient communication infrastructure. And like projects like that, I'm just like, this is so fucking cool, man. Like,
Right.
makes me so excited for like a kind of solar punk future.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's technology. Excuse me. It seems like technology is just basically how people choose to use it. I mean, a lot of this tech you're mentioning in the peer-to-peer world, it seems like it's just being weaponized for nefarious reasons by white supremacists. But the overall tech, obviously, I mean, think about if you are an anti-fascist activist and you use one of these peer-to-peer, I mean, they do use it, one of these peer-to-peer communication platforms to basically organize. That way, the cops can't sort of shut you down or know where you're going to be, and you could take part in these sorts of direct actions. The unfortunate thing is, the white supremacists are also using it for that very same reason. Yeah.
Yeah, like in the scuttlebutt community, there's a lot of conversations about like one of the main features that like queer and POC communities have been asking for is private rooms, like private communities. And it's tricky because this actually the same reasons that like queers and other marginalized groups want this technology is the same reason that Nazis want it. I mean, obviously to different ends. Like we just want it so that we can have a safer place to, not be persecuted or whatever. And they want it to organize racist violence. But the reason that we both want it is that it's like safer, more secure, more resilient. All the things that are beneficial to me are also beneficial to people that I oppose. Also,
Right.
like, you know, with any of these technologies, it obviously brings up like the potential for risk about child abuse content and other things like that.
Right.
So there's like anytime you have some kind of system, like arguably the entire internet, you're gonna have like these super gross bad actors. And so I feel like part of the part of the way of dealing with that is just to be really frank about the risks and try to address them to whatever extent we can.
So
Um,
what can be done, if anything, about you go through this in the report. What can be done, if anything, about how white supremacists are weaponizing these technologies?
yeah, so well, there's a lot of different angles, and there's some limits to it, right? Like freedoms come with risks. There's limits to what's possible. And the example of Mastodon that I mentioned before is a common one across a lot of peer-to-peer platforms, which is basically like we should try to isolate them. Like it's a decentralized system, but we should put them on a little island where all they have to make their system resilient is their small little sub-community niche. We shouldn't allow them the rich tapestry of hosting and whatnot that we're all kind of in a mutual aid way sharing with ourselves. So there are a lot of technologies you can do this kind of like isolating. Um, and then like some communities do different things like it sounds cheesy, but like aesthetic choices. Like if you make a technology as a free speech platform, because of the way that dog whistles work, that's going to be more far right. Even though historically free speech is a leftist issue, like
Right.
sedition charges were primarily at Black Lib activists, and like Emma Goldman, I think, was deported for sedition. So but if you say like we're a free speech platform, you're going to be Gab. You're going to have tons of Nazis. Like 8kun, arguably anybody could set up a board on 8kun, but like so weird, it just ends up being super fascist.
Right. Right.
um,
I wonder if that has
and
anything to do with the people who run it, but who knows, right? I mean, the
follow my
Watkins
time.
family. I wonder if they have anything to do with that, right?
I'll give you a little exclusive scoop here and your
Oh,
followers, which is that in the next week or so, if you follow my timeline, I'm going to have a huge story on 8kun and Jim Watkins and their kind of communication infrastructure and who they've been communicating with and stuff like that. So
give
stay
me
tuned.
give me 1 second. Being that we have some breaking news on here, I have to play the DJ air horn effect. I don't know if you hear it. Now, I've actually written some things about Watkins, Jim Watkins, and 8kun, and I don't. I know you can't give away too much yet, but have you finally officially unveiled that he is Q?
I think that based on the information we have, it would be irresponsible to make any claims about
Yes.
who or what Q is. I will say, like, I wrote a bunch of stuff about trip codes and like really bizarre irregularities in their encryption system that I think are extremely sketchy, but it ended up getting cut from this story because it's a little bit of a tangent.
All right.
But that being said, it's pretty interesting who they're talking to. But we can catch
Ooh.
up about that later.
Ooh.
Um, Spicy.
I know you might be back on
Yeah.
this show sooner than you expected.
I mean, I'm having fun. Yeah, so there's something to be said about aesthetic choices. Like Scuttlebutt, on their homepage advertises like they have like kind of pastel colors, and their homepage is like a cartoon about a queer interracial couple, like just, and they have content warnings and a lot of the clients and stuff like that, that is like is a vice signal, is an anti-virtue signal in a lot of far right communities. Obviously, since it's open source, they could fork it and make their own version, that's like much more fash friendly or whatever, but it won't get maintained. You know what I mean? None of the development community will support it. Like one of the issues is there are always points of centralization in a lot of these things. So like IPFS, for example, I talked to them at some gathering back before everything, and I was like, hey, did you know about this manifesto thing? And they're like, oh, that sucks. We'll make sure that it's not on our main portal, because like they have a sort of more centralized version of it that you can go through to easily get started on the technology. And so they can make sure that it's not on that most commonly used one, even if that doesn't stop like other smaller groups from using it. And then
Right.
like anti-fascist tactics will still work. Like, infiltration will still work.
Right.
But I think when I try to explain this decentralized technology to people, they usually get really confused, because they'll ask me questions like, how many Nazis are using decentralized technology? And I'm like, well, it's impossible to know. And they're like, well, then how do you know it's a threat? And I'm like, well, because we can see the tips of the iceberg. We can see them talking about it in public forums. We can see, some Bitcoin logs. We can see like people talking about things happening in other technologies and stuff like that. But the point is, the FBI or whoever can't just like they can't do an NSA in the same way that like they would like to. They can't do the same degree of surveillance. And so that'll be true of activist groups too, who have like a set of tactics that they've gotten used to using on centralized platforms, which aren't going to work the same on
Right.
a lot of platforms. But some of them will, of course.
Right. I mean, from what it sounds like, it sort of seems like, I have the same sort of belief in terms of, when a white supremacist or a disinformation actor basically gets removed from a mainstream platform, that's good, because the threat there is that they're able to spread their ideology to the masses, and people will fall for this sort of stuff. And whether it's white supremacy and falling down the rabbit hole of becoming going all the way to becoming a neo-Nazi, or just even just spreading misinformation, something about the coronavirus vaccine, and they see it on
Yeah.
Facebook or Twitter, and they say, oh, that's horrible, I gotta let my friends and family know about this, and they spread this bullshit. So that's good when they're deplatformed off of there for those reasons. But it's sort of also good that they exist somewhere online away from the mainstream general public, because I think it would be really bad actually if they took everything completely offline, where you couldn't track the actors, you couldn't track what the current talking points were, or what they were currently doing in terms of their plans for spreading their hateful ideologies or disinformation. So the idea that they're on these platforms that really only the most hardcore of either anti-fascists who go after them, or even just people who are really tech savvy, who know how to access these platforms, can see them, I think that's sort of not the worst case scenario, and in fact there's many positives to that.
Yeah, so you bring up a lot of interesting points. So the first one you bring up is like, on Twitter, it's really easy to get your message out to a large audience. If you get deplatformed off Twitter, or this payment processor or this other thing, then you go to this more niche thing. Like, for example, like a lot of fash like to use onion sites that are only accessible by Tor. But by the time you're on an onion site, you're already going to eliminate like 96% of your potential audience who might otherwise see it, but who now aren't because they're not going to download Tor. They're not going to learn some obscure new technology. Like your average boomer grandpa isn't going to be like, I'm just going to do.
Right.
And
I
so
mean, they're even losing people just by using Parler, and that's a publicly accessible,
yeah,
mainstream, I guess you can say, right wing site. It's just the fact that
yeah,
once you are creating a niche community, you're automatically just losing people who just spend all their time on, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I mean, there's a reason why YouTube has been like the number one driver of radicalizing young white men, and that's because they're already on there consuming other content, and then they fall on the far right stuff, and then they fall down into that rabbit hole of consuming it all.
yeah. And that there are some dark sides to this too, which is like, okay, now they're not on Twitter, so they don't have to hide it at all. So it's only the most hardcore people, but then they can engage in like actual, explicit like what they want and how they want to do it, and try to organize and stuff like that in a way that maybe they'd be more cautious on Twitter. So
Right.
that's kind of one bad side. But the other part of it is that um, it's like, I guess in computer science, we'd call it like an adversarial problem. And what I mean by that is as you adapt to each new phase of the like war or whatever, the whole situation becomes more complex, and it goes up to it ratchets up to a new level. So what I mean by that is like at first there's all these technologies that are really new, they're kind of buggy, they're kind of hard to access, the features don't really work that well, so it eliminates a lot of people that wouldn't use it otherwise. But as those people get deplatformed, they move over to this technology. It has more users. As it has more users, it gets more funding. As it gets more funding, some of the bugs work out. Like Bitcoin is pretty accessible now. The old days where you needed like this advanced wallet key management system and you had to like, buy it from some sketchy dude on the corner is gone. Like you can get it in Cash App. You know what I mean? You can buy it on tons of apps and it's like seamless. So these technologies are going to get more popular and more commonplace. There's also an argument in decentralized communities that the model of the web that we have now is not sustainable. And so it's going to kind of collapse under the weight of its own internal contradictions. I mean, that may or may not be true. But if it is true, there's going to be mass rush to peer-to-peer systems that already have a leg up. Like an example of that is if Trump got his way on removing Section 230 of platform, which is like this platform responsibility thing. Basically, it says that platforms are not liable for content on their websites, and he wants to get rid of it. If that did happen, it would probably collapse a lot of the mainstream platforms like Twitter. And so there's an argument to be said that, that alone could push a ton more people, maybe not all these people who are used to this technology, but a ton more people. And so in any case, in each new phase, like Nazis are bad at using this technology right now, so it's easy to find them using it, but then they get exposed and then they get a little bit better at it. It's kind of an ongoing back and forth. So it's a tricky question, but I think it's just like I guess the point in my report was that I wanted people to take away was the way that we solve these problems in peer-to-peer systems is a lot closer to how we solve them in communities, which is to say it's hard. You can't just like entrust some central authority to like protect you. Like
Right.
as a community, we need to moderate our content together. You know what I mean? We need to do the work of not spreading these messages and rather than right now, most moderation is outsourced, like to Mechanical Turk workers on, through Amazon or whatever. A lot of it's done in the global south, and it'll be like really gory, traumatic shit. And they're like, hey, is this gory and traumatic? And these people are paid like nothing to do that.
Right.
And so a peer-to-peer system takes away that whole thing. It's up to us now. And so I think the reason why that technology is exciting and terrifying is it's kind of like this offer to evolve the way that we interact and connect online, and that's going to be challenging kind of inherently.
Right. Right. That's a.
But
No,
more
that's a.
sustainable,
What was that? I'm sorry.
but more sustainable in the end.
Right. Right. The interesting thing is, I came across your report actually while I was doing putting together a piece about BitChute, and we haven't talked about BitChute yet, and I sort of wanted to leave it to the end because it's interesting. You brought up before how free, because it's not in your report, but I wanted to bring it up anyway, because you brought up before how sort of how like the words free speech are a great way to describe a lot of peer-to-peer platform. Like one of the positives about peer-to-peer platforms in terms of actually being able to it's mainly a leftist ideal that's sort of been weaponized by the right, and they've taken it, and now whenever you hear free speech, you automatically think a site like Parler or Gab or worse. And in the same way, they're using the words free speech as like a anti-big tech like marketing sort of tool. Peer-to-peer seems to actually be sort of becoming like that as well, because BitChute is basically this far-right video hosting platform. Just like how Parler wants to take on Facebook and Gab wanted to take on Twitter, BitChute is there to sort of take on YouTube as like the right wing's video hosting platform. And one of the things very early on that they promoted was that they were a peer-to-peer sort of platform, whereas a user watching a video was also sort of seeding that video to another user, and that was their way of sort of letting their users know that, listen, no matter how big we get or whatever, we can never just all of a sudden decide we don't want you guys here anymore because we have no control over the content. And everywhere you look, BitChute was basically boasting about being a peer-to-peer platform in its earliest days. They still mention it. But there's been a number of studies that I came across that basically show that BitChute may be using some sort of on-web peer-to-peer technology, like on their website, basically in like a worst-case scenario, in the best case in terms of they're saying they're peer-to-peer. But there's been numerous times where they've lost like a service provider, or there's been some sort of issue, and the whole site, including all the videos, just comes down. So I mean, obviously, if there was peer to peer, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
The videos would be fine. So do you think that is something that's going to happen in terms of like are you familiar with BitChute? Like, do you think it's this that they are using this sort of peer to peer as like a marketing tool now? Like it's become a thing to sort of lure white supremacist and far right users in?
Yeah, I think it's a grift. Like, I think for a lot of websites, it's like there was this huge rush of people who claimed that their technology was on the blockchain, and it like wasn't even, or there was no reason for it to be on the blockchain. It's just kind of like a grift. Yeah, read some of the articles about BitChute, and I've certainly found tons of like hardcore Nazi content, including I was doing an investigation into Iron March forums and Atomwaffen, and I found like old videos of the guy from the base before he was outed as like a sketchy former U.S. Fed that fled to Russia or whatever. Yeah, I found like old videos of him on there, tons of like, basically David Duke mumbling kind of videos of people reading things.
I mean,
but
BitChute must be, in my estimation, from my own research into it as well, I think it might be the most far right of the easily accessible platforms. Like you just have to type in bitshoot.com and you go to it like any other website. It's not like a hidden like special like onion site, or you need to be using peer-to-peer technology, meaning that only people within that private network know about it. It really must be the because I've seen some of the same stuff you've come across. Not the base thing, but that's pretty crazy. But I mean, they're still having the Christchurch live stream shooting video uploaded on that site, and it just the versions of it just sit there like when it's already actually been pretty much removed from everywhere else, it seems, at least of the easily accessible platforms.
They do take content down if it gets like too. That's the thing. Most of these platforms, you can tell that they're not decentralized because they do centralized takedowns. Like as soon as they get exposed, they like start doing centralized takedowns. Parler does takedowns. I think Gab does takedowns, and 8kun certainly does takedowns. I mean, 8kun, they've had a couple of like peer-to-peer grifts. You can access 8kun on this thing called LokiNet now, which is like this weird server thing. But they've also had this like technology that they've been developing that, as far as I know, never really came out. That was like going to be some sort of decentralized DNS thing so that they would be more resilient. But yeah, most of these types of things are more complicated, like you said. Like to do the LokiNet one, you have to like have LokiNet set up. You can't just go to their website. Maybe it's like seeding their website. I don't totally understand it, but as far as I can tell, they still crash. They still do centralized takedowns. Like it's not a thing.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to take in that these right wing platforms do takedowns. They lied to us about being about free speech. I'm so hurt right now. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's interesting what they do and don't take down too, right? Like, 8kun was pretty infamous for not taking down child abuse content for a long time. Even like archive.today stopped hosting them for a little while. Was like, we just have to block them because we keep getting child abuse content. And this is like a Russian archive website that takes anything, you know what I mean?
Right.
And even they at some point were like, oh, this 8chan shit is too extreme for us. So like
the global pedophile ring call was coming from inside the house all along, wasn't it? I mean,
that's the whole Save the Children joke. Like,
yeah.
It exposed that Watkins was hosting all these child abuse websites, and that's where a bunch of his money was coming from. There was like a big article that just came out about this.
Right.
They don't suck about the kids.
Yeah, they really. I mean, really. I mean.
It's like Eric Prince level. You're just like, lay it all out. You're like, holy shit, this is too on the nose.
Right. Right. I mean, the whole thing with this year we really saw it all just come out. It's really like, have you ever seen that meme where it's like, it's the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and it's the Gadsden flag with the snake, and it's the snake saying like, no, tread on them, tread on them. That's literally like. It's all about their own little, they can't do it, but let it be done to others. Like the idea that they love the police. Interestingly enough, these same people who with the "Don't Tread on Me" flag love the police. However, when the shoe is on the other foot and they're the ones getting the rare cases of police brutality, but we did see it this year where that some of these coronavirus lockdowns, protests, that the police hassled them. All of a sudden, it was like. What? What? I mean,
we're patriots, dude.
Yeah, it's just stunning. It's just, I mean, no matter how obvious it is that this is what happens, it'll always still be stunning to me because it's just
like this whole thing. The whole point. I'm not going to say that the left is ideologically coherent. The left, in and of itself, as a concept, is not ideologically coherent, but. Like the right is so absurdly incoherent that it's just like it makes your brain split apart. Like an example relevant to this like interview or whatever is the founder of the neo-reactionary movement, Curtis Yarvin, also known as Mencius Moldbug, Dark Enlightenment, all that shit. He's basically a technocrat monarchist. He's like, democracy's bad. We need to have Elon Musk rule the universe, but through fascism, like a fascist techno monarchist.
Right.
And that's his great insight. He was like, okay. He was like, okay, now I'm going to get into the peer-to-peer world. And so he tries to build this technology called Urbit, which I don't talk about in the essay, but it's funny. It's like this decentralized federated kind of server technology that's getting really popular in the far right. But what's funny about it is he's like, yeah, it's peer-to-peer. And then you're like, well, what does this have to do with monarchism? Like, he was asked at this point, like, how do you connect this decentralized community like system to your ideology? And he was like, oh, I built it after a monarchy. See, all these different servers are actually like duchies and duchesses and dukes, and like
I mean, the easiest answer really would have been, and surprisingly he didn't think of this. The easiest answer would be like, when the technology gets big enough, I'm going to gift it to Elon Musk. I mean, that would have been the simplest thing. And then there you go. It's right there in your ideology.
It's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, you can go off the deep end with believing in peer-to-peer technology. You can go off the deep end believing in anything. But there's like some just fundamental contradiction it's like, Zizek, pure ideology kind of thing, where you're just like, wow, dude, you're on one, man. Like,
right. Emmi Bevensee, data scientist and activist. Check them out at Rebellious Data. Is it rebelliousdata.com? I have it open.
Yeah, rebelliousdata.com. We also run like an app for kind of looking at timelines and making really easy like data viz, studying things that are trending on different social media platforms. It's called smat-app.com. We've got a bunch of platforms on there like 8kun, 4chan, Twitter, Reddit, whatever. It's fun to mess with. And also you can follow me on Twitter at Emmi Bevensee. So my name is EMMIBEVENSEE, where I talk a lot of bullshit.
Oh, that's what Twitter's for. Really, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And you're from just your tease with the your upcoming 8kun piece. You're gonna have to come back. I'm sorry.
It's gonna be spicy. I'm pretty excited.
Stop doing this to me. I'm like, now I gotta know.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Have a great night. Take care.
Bye.
Happy New Year too, by the way.
Hey, there you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here we go. Skype shutting off. Boop boop. All right. Well, let me turn my volume up here because I know the volume goes down now after the. Here we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was great. I really enjoyed that interview, and I'm like already because I have a upcoming in the second half of the show, a little bit of news from in the QAnon world that I'm going to share with all of you. Is a recent study that was released that's very interesting, but freebies aren't going to hear that. It's only for you live stream watchers and you patrons. Patreon.com/MattBinder. That's the best way to support this show. If you can. A couple of weeks ago, I should say, I had basically said that I had hoped to hit 200 patrons by the end of the year. I don't think that's going to happen. That seems like a goal that was a bit ahead of its time. But we're literally just like a couple of patrons away from 150 patrons. And it would be awesome if by the end of this show, we hit that. that would make me very happy. So patreon.com/Matt Binder. Again, only if you can financially do so. If not, you could also, if you are financially able to give something, but just can't commit to a monthly subscription, you can jump in the YouTube live chat right now, if you're watching live, obviously, youtube.com/Matt Binder, and drop a super chat. It will guarantee A, that I read your chat in the during the show, and B, it gives me a one-off donation as I guess your appreciation for what I do. Also, you can support this show by obviously subscribing to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Matt Binder. doomedpod.com for the podcast version of the show. And another way you could support this show is by going to the show on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave not only a star review, whatever their review ranking is off of iTunes. I know iTunes does star reviews. Also leave a written review. I'm not shitting you. These help tremendously. They push the show up the various podcast rankings, which gives the show, puts the show in front of more eyeballs. And also, people like to consume content that they see other people, A, consuming, and B, very happy about. So let people know that you love this show, if you love it. If you hate it, you can let people know you hate it. I mean, I'm not someone who's gonna tell you have to give me a good review, but you should. You can follow me wherever you're on social media. I'm usually at Matt Binder, like I am on Twitter, Instagram, etc., etc., etc. So many people just start following me on Instagram out of the blue. I don't know what it is. I don't post on Instagram. Every week I say, oh, I want to do more Instagram, and I never do. Yet somehow people always are following me on there all of a sudden. I will start doing more Instagram stuff, I guess. Gotta start posting more pics and doing vids for Instagram, right? You guys all know about me on Twitter, but if you're not already following me on there, follow me on there. For 2021, I should really start doing TikTok. All the youth are on TikTok, and the left's gotta represent for the youth. They gotta bring the youth into the fold here, right? I'm not gonna be a weirdo like Tim Pool and say that I'm gonna, trick youngsters into liking conservative values by talking about like video games and stuff like that. I'm very openly gonna be like, hey, if you like leftist stuff, follow me here, and I'm not gonna do TikTok dances, but I'll make the short form minute long content like I do on here, but for TikTok, the short form. Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying. Also, we're just doing fun actually in the Patreon half of the show today. Something not political, just fun type of stuff. If you enjoyed my walkthrough of the studio during the last member show, when I shut off the green screen and I gave you a tour of what's to come in this little closet space that I call a studio, you're probably gonna like this. It involves very old soda I found. That's the hint I'll give you, and the Insane Clown Posse. So that'll be fun. And that's coming up in, I guess I'll say, what, is there anything else I need to promote? No? 3, 2, 1. All right, freebies. See you next time on Doomed. Oh, hell yeah. We just hit the, am I too loud now? First of all, am I too loud now? Did the old, I don't know if you guys, if you're a usual watcher of the show, for the past 2 episodes, for some reason, there's been some issue with the sound level getting really low when the guest comes off, like my sound levels, like when the guest leaves the show, the sound levels for my volume goes really low for some reason. Is that fixed? Do you guys hear me good? Cool. Audio seems normal to me, says Dorian. Slice Keeper says, "Hey, I'm still here. Is because I pay for YouTube Premium? I wish. That has nothing to do with it. I give people who watch the live stream the patron show for free. For now. That's going to change, and sooner or later, it's only going to be for patrons. I'm going to start a whole new live stream feed, and you have to be a patron to watch. I just think at this point, this is just a good way to bring people to the Patreon, to become a patron. Just a good little taste of what I'm going to do very soon. And by the way, we just hit, I believe, 150 patrons. I'm not going to say don't join it now if you haven't, because maybe you could help me get to 200 in the next 2 weeks. But I'm going to give a shout out to those two people who just joined and pushed us to that 150 number. TM and Alas, poor Yorick. That's a great username, by the way. Alas, poor Yorick. I like that. But thank you so much, both of you, for becoming a patron, heeding my calls. We now have that nice round 150 active patron number. That next goal is going to be 200. And when that happens, I think I'll really be able to start pushing stuff out. Honestly, I think that's a big number because it also hits the monetary value up to a number that makes this quite a stable sort of part-time gig. Stable. I can do this every week without fail, but I'll be able to put out more stuff for sure. So yeah, let's first get to the QAnon story I wanted to do. Also, let me just keep track of what time it is. We are at the 10:13 mark. Cool. I want to make sure. I always say, gotta check the time, make sure I give members a nice round 30 to 45 minute bonus, and then I check and I end up giving them like an hour and a half longer than the freebies, which is cool. Don't mind it at all. But I'm just mocking my ability to keep track of time. So let's do this. So earlier this week I came across a study. It was conducted by a European company that basically does analysis of contextual documents. They have software tools, machine learning actually, that basically takes a look at text, and they're able to tell when documents have been forged, when documents are fraudulent, when plagiarism has occurred. And they're basically able, using their technology, to really just completely analyze written text. And they're able to tell, for example, when it came from a certain author or not. And so this company, they're a European firm called Orf Analytics. And so they decided to use their technology to put together a study on QAnon. And what they did is they took all the communiques, aka Q drops, that Q has been posting on 4chan and 8chan, now 8kun, and basically throw them to their machine learning technology, and analyze it all and see what comes up. And basically their study has confirmed what many people have sort of speculated about Q. And I don't know if you're familiar. Let me break down that speculation so far. So when 8chan went down last year after it was used as basically a tool for posting the El Paso, Texas shooter during that mass shooting in El Paso, the shooter's manifesto, there was basically a massive movement to deplatform 8chan from its various service providers. And the site was deplatformed for a short time, and then it came back as 8kun. The owner, Jim Watkins, found various other service providers to help bring 8chan back, but he changed the name to try to get rid of some of that bad press. But when it came back, people had noticed that the voice behind Q, who has been posting on 8chan, it was a little bit different than it had been. And some had even speculated that had happened even earlier. But it became really obvious when 8chan came back as 8kun, because the one thing that came up was it was down for such a significant period of time that what was to stop 8chan's owner, Jim Watkins, from basically, doing whatever with the platform. Q hadn't been posting because the site was down. So when it came back, what's to stop anyone from posting as Q? What's to stop that trip code, that code that was basically a way for, because again, these image boards, the users are anonymous, but a trip code can basically be placed on a specific handle that basically says that, hey, this person is the person who's been posting using this handle throughout. So back to this study now. So this study has basically confirmed that speculation, and it confirms it for even those who believe that switch happened much earlier. Now, what it says is all of the Q drops, all of Q's postings from October 2017, when the QAnon movement first started, when Q posted his first drop on the image board 4chan, not 8chan. Remember, QAnon was born, on 4chan, when an anonymous user going by Q started posting on there, basically saying how there will be imminent mass arrests for basically people who are President Donald Trump's political enemies. And it was because, obviously, of global satanic pedophile rings, of course. And it began in October 2017, and from October 2017 to December 2017, this machine learning analysis found that all those posts had the same basic signature to them. Basically, it all looked like it came from, and sounded like, and was written as if it came from the same author. So one person, or, and this is also a possibility, a number of authors working together, but basically one main author, though, created all those Q posts from October to December 2017. But then that machine learning analysis found that all those Q drops, since it moved to 8chan in December 2017 all the way to present day, had a very distinct and separate signature from the ones that were posted on 4chan. And the conclusion to that from this study is that just these are two separate people. Or, again, the study leaves room for there could be many authors contributing, but there still is a central voice. But again, group one or individual one on 4chan, completely different Q from the Q on 8chan/8kun. Even though that's not something that's part of like the QAnon canon, I guess you can say. It's never been, the QAnon believers don't say, oh yeah, 8chan Q is different from 4chan Q. No, that's the same Q within the QAnon world. Now, let me add an addendum. I think this is a big study because it proves that there is something to this speculation, and it gives everyone who's been sort of looking at who this possible new Q is, or who's been running Q for the past couple of years it gives them, a leg to stand on and sort of backing for their leads. But I want to add an addendum. This study cannot confirm, obviously, who that Q is. There's still no proof, no concrete evidence, even though there's a lot of speculation, there's no concrete evidence that Jim Watkins, the owner of 8chan, has been posting as Q. Again, there's a lot of things out there that point to it, and there's been a lot of people who've come out and said, oh yeah, Jim Watkins is Q. It's just not enough evidence to really cement that, even though it looks like a pretty strong possibility. But anyway, study backs the idea. A machine learning analysis of the writing of QAnon, of the writing of Q in the Q drops posted on 4chan and 8chan/8kun show that 4chan Q and 8chan/8kun Q, two distinct separate voices, meaning very likely two completely separate individuals. And again, some people said they're all bullshit. What does it matter? I mean, yeah, of course, Q and everything Q posts is bullshit, and the whole QAnon movement is bullshit. No Q prediction has ever come true. There's been no mass arrests. There's been no single arrest. There's no proof of any sort of global pedophile ring that they mention. There are very many real groups that track actual, legitimate, real pedophile, child trafficking, sex trafficking rings. QAnon is focused on A, not helping none of those actual groups, and B, monitoring and focusing on none of those very real trafficking rings. But if you want to understand this movement, I would say it's pretty important to find out who is posting these communiques that the movement is basically holding on to as like the North Star, the guiding light of everything they do and believe. I mean, if even if it didn't open anyone's eyes and make them, think it's all bullshit and leave it, I think it's pretty important to know, to understand how this happened to begin with, how this fringe right-wing movement grew into this sort of mainstream thing that's convinced your uncles, aunts, parents, grandparents on Facebook that this bizarre, unsubstantiated shit is happening. Ryan says that's because they replaced them all with clones, Matt. Right. Q has been replaced with clones, right. Samantha Siders says, holy crap, Matt has been replaced by clones too. Yep. All right, let me go to the super chats right now. Bloop, 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 bloop. Renee with a super chat says, Quilombos predates autonomous zones because they were escaped slave communities in the what is this? XIX? I'm actually really unfamiliar with this. I just understood what Emmi basically gave me a summary of, and it seemed like a very good thing. And, that seems like a very good use of that technology. But I am completely out of the loop with what those are, Renee. Samantha says, can I get an air... Oh, this is a super chat. Can I get an air horn for my 30th birthday? Samantha Cider, it is your 30th birthday. The big 3-0. Wow, well, you're not only going to get an air horn, you're going to get a glockenspiel. You're going to get a party noisemaker. You're going to get a triangle. And you're going to get a bicycle horn. Happy birthday, Samantha. Enjoy your 30s. I can tell you as someone who is 34, which means I'm now deep into my 30s, that you know how when you hit your 20s and you're like, that don't feel so different from my teens. Like, I don't feel so different from, 18, 19 to, 20, 21. And then even as you got to your mid-20s and late 20s, you were like, I'm still feeling good. I feel young still. I don't feel any real changes yet so far. There was distinct. I felt it. I felt... I used to be able to be fairly in good shape in terms of just, I had a natural. I was very lucky. First of all, I'm very lucky for. I know I'm very lucky. First of all, for being just a fairly skinny person, no matter what I eat or whatever. But it used to be even crazier than that. I used to just have a natural 6-pack. Don't take me. Oh, he's got a 6-pack. No, I'm telling you, I did nothing to deserve it. Never worked out. I just had a natural six pack from like my teenage years all the way to like 29. And then I hit 30 and it was gone. It was gone. It was gone. My whole life from 0 to 29 years old, I had an outie belly button. And then I hit my 30s, my six pack went away, and my belly button sunk into my body. So you're going to feel the differences. I tell you right now, 30s are not at all like the rest of everything else. This is when you're going to start, and I started becoming very conscious about any sort of hair loss. I mean, I'm very lucky. Again, I'm very lucky. This is all real and long and still fairly thick. But I'm terrified. And I noticed that when I wash my hair every other day, I take, when you have long hair, you have to wash your hair every single day. It's bad for your hair. But when I wash my hair every other day, I noticed that, unfortunately, I think a lot more of my hair is coming out every wash. I'm still pretty far from, I guess, going bald, but I'm terrified. I'm honestly terrified. So you will feel the changes, unfortunately. Maybe you're even luckier than I've been, and you're gonna withstand your 30s. But for me, all the lucky physical traits I had that I did not earn at all, I started to lose them once I hit 30, and it was abrupt. Like, maybe not the day I hit 30, but in my 30s right away. Like, maybe, like, into my, like, halfway into 30, or maybe, like, just as about to turn 31. Like, it happened. So, yeah, happy birthday. Enjoy your 30s. Ryan says, yeah, your trash diet is the stuff of majority report legends. Yes, I've been... Michael Brooks and still Sam Cedar have dunked on me for the past decade for my eating habits. The mass amounts of energy drinks and sodas, soft drinks, Coca-Colas, Pepsis, and just McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, you name it, I consume it. It's no good. But it is what it is. I'm sorry. I can't help it. The McRib is back at McDonald's, and it's delicious. We live in a society. I'd happy to see it all go for a socialist utopia. But while it's here, I gotta take part in it, and I will take part in it, and I'll enjoy it. God damn it. Renee with another super chat, going to Colin to talk about SLSK WinMX fascism. I don't know if I'm gonna do calls today, Renee. I got some more stuff to talk about, so I don't think I'm going to do calls quite today. But I'll probably do calls. I'm thinking, I'm not sure when I'm going to do next week's show, whether it's going to be before or after Christmas. There'll definitely be a show next week. Christmas Eve is on Thursday. Christmas Day is Friday. Now, I've been invited on Christmas Eve, which is Festivus, by the way, December 23rd, I've been invited that night to join the serfs who are going to do an Among Us stream. And they invited me to take part in that. And I'm thinking that'll be fun to do. Maybe what I'll do is I'll stream that on my end, if I can figure out how to do that. So I'll be on the serfs stream playing, but you'll be able to see me and my phone while I'm playing it. If that makes sense. I've never played Among Us, so I know it's an app. It's a phone game, right? Yeah. I'm going to look into doing that. Obviously, that probably won't be best for a podcast, but you can watch the stream. And then I'll probably do like a laid-back Christmas episode, maybe like the day after Christmas, like that Saturday or Sunday after Christmas, the 26th or the 27th. I'll I'll keep you guys posted, obviously. But there'll definitely be a show next week. Probably, like I said, with the surfs thing, there'll be 2 shows next week. And then I'll do a show the week after, obviously. That one will probably be maybe before New Year's. That one might be before or after New Year's, too. I'll let you guys know about that one. But, yeah, we're winding down this horrible, terrible, horrible year that is 2020. And like I said on the Majority Report earlier, when I was on my last Majority Report Thursday of 2020, I was like, usually I'm not one of those people who are like, oh yeah, so happy to see the year to go, because I'm always like, people make years. Like we human beings created the way we put together and count time. The world and what happens in it, they don't listen. Like the Earth and what it doesn't care about how we keep track of time. If you believe in karma or whatever, karma doesn't look at the year ended, time to reset. No, none of that. No. That's a human thing. So I was never like, oh, happy to see this year to go. It never really mattered to me. If you wanted to make a change, make a change. Don't wait for a nonsensical January 1st date or something like that. But this year made me rethink that. This has just been a shit year. I've been actually, again, one of the luckier ones, too. I've knock on wood, and I hope it continues as we continue this pandemic. Because, again, January 1st, 2021 rolls around. Pandemic doesn't disappear like that. It's not, new year, pandemic gone. No. But, like I said on Majority Report, earlier this year, March, we didn't know what was going to happen. This shit hit. And was it going to end? Ever? Is this how it's going to be? Are they going to be able to find a vaccine? How long are these lockdowns and quarantines going to happen? Will we ever be able to see our family again? How many more people are going to die? Is there going to be millions and millions a month? But now, as we hit this new peak, and it's going to get worse, obviously, in terms of deaths, from what I'm seeing, unfortunately. I mean, we're already hitting new highs every day. We're up to over 3,000 people dying in the U.S. alone every day from the coronavirus. It's just... But there is clearly now a light at the end of the tunnel. There are vaccines. There are scientists and medical experts who are saying that we can very well have this contained and the pandemic done by fall of 2021 if we all work together and everyone gets this vaccine. And again, I know everyone's not going to get this vaccine. There's a whole issue there. But again, there are strategies from people who are trusted and know this better than anyone else who are saying that we can do this now. We see what we need to do and it's being done. So this year will feel a lot different, 2021, I think, in terms of still being in the pandemic. But man, 2020's been shit. I mean, and I even mentioned the loss of, Michael Brooks of the Michael Brooks Show and the Majority Report. It's been fucking a crap year, but good to see it go. Good to see it go. Peace, 2020. We lost a lot of good people this year. I mean, again, I didn't know all these people, but obviously all the people who coronavirus took. But then also there were a number of notable people of note, public figures, celebrity deaths this year, and it really did feel like more than usual. Yeah. So what was I talking about? All right, so that's the schedule for the next couple of weeks, and that schedule is basically keep track of me on Twitter. And I've been noticing, and I'm really bad at this part of it. I'm sorry. I'm going to get much better, I swear to you. A lot of members, especially new members, something must have happened to the Patreon connection with the Discord. A lot of new members over the past couple of months, I would say, have told me that, hey, I can't get into the Discord. And I've actually sort of been like, I dropped the ball on the Discord. Partially because I'm not a fan of Discord as a platform, but I know the bonus of patrons being members of Discord is a bonus for a lot of people. So I'm gonna get back on that. Either I'm gonna get everyone in the Discord invite that hasn't gotten it yet, or B, I'm gonna move to a new platform that I like, and that'll be the platform for the patrons only. That'll be the patron platform. Our little community. Discord doesn't do it for me. I don't know what it is about Discord. I don't like it too much. It's okay. It's okay. I don't like how there's no like threads. The conversation's sort of all over the place. It's just sort of not appealing to me. Zoe, make me mod of the Discord and I'll fix it. If you know Discord and want to do that, for sure, I will do that 100%. Mighty Mouse said David Graeber. We lost David Graeber. Mighty Mouse said David Graeber was the worst. As Michael's friend, I can't say that, but David Graeber was a tough one. That sucked for sure. But again, it's even crazy just for me to just. A lot of people have been saying this. I've seen that Michael Brooks was their hardest hit celebrity death, and it's still. What hits me is even that people looked at him like that. I mean, it totally makes sense. I'm not poo-pooing that. He totally is deserving of the celebrity category, in my view. But I just never even looked at him that way, obviously. I mean, I was there when the first day he came in working for the Majority Report. And he was no one. Nobody knew him. He had contributed to David Pakman for a few episodes or something like that. And David Pakman obviously wasn't as big as it was. This is like in 2011, 2012. So, yeah. Let me go back to the Super Chats. Hot Mustard Gas. Have you heard about the book Culture Warlords, My Journey into the Dark Web of White Supremacy? You should interview the author. Yes, Talia, yes. She has been a guest on this show before. It was before her book came out. Look in the archives of the show. She was on both YouTube live stream and the podcast. It's the same show, but the first, I think like 10 episodes of Doomed, I wasn't also doing the YouTube live stream yet. So the first 10 episodes, I think 10, but those first couple of episodes of Doomed are just podcast. And then I started doing the live stream as well for that. But yeah, Talia was a guest, and I'm definitely going to have her back on to talk about her book. Hot Mustard gets another super chat. I just want to say that the book that I recommended is about a woman that infiltrates white supremacist groups online. She is also progressive. Yes, and I've met her too in real life. She's great. And again, she's been a guest on the show. I don't remember if we talked about her. I know she mentioned the book when she was on. It wasn't out yet, obviously, but I don't know if we got into what was going to be covered in it then. Vinny Holiday, what's your episode schedule? Love the topics, man. Thank you, Vinny. We do the show usually on Thursdays at either 9 or 9:30. I always give a heads up on Twitter and on Patreon, which is the public Patreon part. I do these show announcements on Patreon on the public section. So you can just follow on Patreon too. There's a follow... there's a way to follow a Patreon so you could get they email you when there's public posts. You obviously just won't get the private posts and members only podcasts unless you're a paying subscriber. But the good part about doing your own show is I can, while we usually do it Thursdays and on Thursdays at 9 or 9 around 9:30, I can move it around based on a guest that I really want and can't do it Thursday, but can do it possibly Wednesday or do it Friday. Like last week, did an emergency last minute show on Wednesday last week because Alex Koch dropped a piece outing some of the funders of the Federalist, and we needed to do that right away. And I literally got him to do the show literally hours after his piece was published on Wednesday. And speaking of when I do the show, Matt Leck of the Michael Brooks Show and David Griscom, they have started a new show after the Michael Brooks Show, obviously, called The Left Reckoning. And they will be doing their show live every Thursday at 7 p.m. And Matt told me that their show will probably go from 7 to 8 p.m. So that's a great, like, little, I know there's about an hour in between, but that's a great little lineup there, if you ask me. You get the Left Reckoning with Matt Leck and David Griscom, and then you could, like, grab dinner or a snack, and you get Doomed with Matt Binder. So yeah, maybe there's a Thursday block there. Maybe we could get someone else doing a show at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. or something like that, and we got a Thursday block. Or maybe you guys like that break in between. Who knows? JC on Super Chat. Thank you for the Super Chat, JC. Matt, I had heard somewhere that once the password for Q's 4chan account was leaked. Is that true? And if so, do you know anything about that? Honestly, that's something that sounds very familiar, but I can't recall the details. What I can do is promise you I'll look into that and I'll bring it up next episode. I'm going to look into that, I promise. It does sound very familiar, though. Who is next on the Super Chat? And then we'll get to the fun thing I wanted to do with you guys. Hot Mustard Gas, give me another no comment Super Chat. Thank you, Hot Mustard Gas. Probably also the first time anyone's ever said, thank you, Hot Mustard Gas. Peasant Chick with a Super Chat. Ooh, in Canadian money. Very grateful that during this horrific year, your channel was always a place to go to for positivity no matter what was going on. Happy holidays, Matt. Thank you so much, Peasant Chick. It means a lot to me that this show about the far right and conspiracy theorists and Nazis and white supremacists was able to provide so much positivity. I mean, it's true, though. I guess I am a very positive person, and people always tell me I am very optimistic about things. I try to be. I don't know how else you can cover this stuff, honestly, if you aren't. And I do want to make sure you guys can absorb this information without, wanting to go home and cry. I try. But happy holidays, and I appreciate it. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Whatever you celebrate, I really hope that you have a very... I hope everyone in your families are happy, healthy, safe. Truly, I hope everyone is able to celebrate the best they can. And I hope anyone who's had a hard year, which is everyone, really, but anyone who's had a especially, I should say, hard year, I really hope that there's a turnaround. I wish I could do something to help you and help that turnaround come quicker. But what I can provide for you is if you ever want to hop in this chat or call when I do a call-in show and just talk and let's do it. Always open to having anyone on the show. Feel free to DM me on Twitter, whatever you need. And just remember, whatever you're going through, you're not going through alone. There are a lot of people who, it's the same thing that you heard in school all the time when people who are afraid to raise your hand and ask a question. There are no stupid questions. If you have a question about something, the odds are someone else in the classroom has a question about that same thing, but they're too self-conscious about raising their hand and asking it. Same thing with this. Whatever you're going through or whatever you have on your mind, whatever you have a question about or a comment about, I will guarantee you there's someone else who is thinking that same thing or going through that same thing, and our conversation about it can help others. So there you go. Keegan with a super chat. If you're looking forward to joining Discord, Keegan, you a patron? Because if so, I will make sure that happens. I promise you, patrons who aren't in the Discord, you're not missing much yet. I'm not especially into Discord as a platform, but I do want to either get more into Discord or find a new community that basically like a new platform to create that community. Because I would love, again, there's 150 people now on the Patreon. I would love to have a community where I just interact with you 150. Because that you guys are giving me money every month to make this show happen. I want to give you as many bonuses as I can put time to, and having a community where I can just jump in and drop things that I don't let anyone else know. Even if it's just like info early, like if you guys know something about to cover on this show a couple days before I cover it, that'd be cool for you guys, I think. That way you could come in with questions and comments or whatever. And again, patrons, if you have a guest in mind you want on the show, I'd be happy to take a look at those guests at priority. Again, no one can change my content in terms of how my opinion on things or how I feel. I mean, obviously, if you have information that you think will change my opinion, I'm happy to absorb that. But for example, just because you're a paying member doesn't mean you get to. This used to happen all the time in the Majority Report, actually. People would write in and be like, hey, I don't like this opinion you had if you don't change it, or I'm holding my membership up for it. Like, if you keep talking about this, I'm going to not subscribe anymore. And it's like, okay, if you want to do that, don't subscribe anymore. But I'm not changing my opinion or my content for, like, I'm not censoring myself for you. But if you would like to contribute to the show in some way, I'd be happy to, especially if you're a patron, take that into consideration. And if it's something that fits, it goes straight to the top of the list in terms of guest or whatever, or a story to cover. James, this is a fun question. It's not a super chat, but I just saw it in the chat. Worst bands you liked in high school/college? Same. I have the same exact taste. It never changed. I got more and more into various niches in those genres of music I listened to, but I still listen to everything that I listened to from high school and college. I've just broadened out to more. Ooh, Emmy's in the chat here. Emmi says to JC, answering that question. In short, yes, Q passwords have been leaked, hacked, but he's talking about Q, speculating that Q is a he. Interesting. What does Emmi know that we don't? Maybe it's in that upcoming piece Emmy's got coming. But he's also switched platforms, 4chan to 8chan to 8kun, and the whole chip code password system is sketchy, right? James says, loved the guest tonight and gonna go check out their organization. I'm a programmer and taking the next 2 weeks off, so exploring what they're up to sounds better than watching Cyberpunk 2077 crash. Man, that game, I don't know what it is, really. I mean, I know people have been looking forward to it. I was joking about it earlier. I was saying I was responsible for them delaying it for no good reason but to be funny on Twitter. But from what I've seen, that game's a complete fuck-up, isn't it? Emmi says, I found some posts with Q chip codes that were like, Q is the F word that is used against LGBT people, and talking errata about Hillary and stuff. It's weird. They said it was the deep state. Yes, this is Emmi from the show. Emmi, great to see you in the chat. Oh wow, no apologies with a big old $20 super chat. Thank you so much, no apologies. Let me get to this comment ASAP right now. In 2017, one of my coworkers was a literal neo-Nazi who told me about Q's predictions all the time and once told me he likes Jimmy Dore because he tells the truth about Democrats. There's so much here. First of all, very interesting that there's actually not a. You would think there was a Venn diagram complete overlap between neo-Nazis and QAnon, but there are actually. I mean, you can say that maybe every QAnon believer has some sort of white supremacist leaning in terms of the hardcore Q community. Obviously, it's grown way beyond that into the mainstream, and the people who are anti-vaxxers and coronavirus skeptics. Those people you can't really say that about because it's just too big of an audience. But that hardcore like 4chan, 8chan visiting group, it's a good amount of them are probably. It wouldn't surprise me. But there are actually a lot of neo-Nazis who find the whole QAnon thing to be ridiculous. Interestingly enough, you'd be surprised, because it makes sense that they wouldn't be into aspects of that. It's also competition. Only so many grifts can run at once. But the Jimmy Dore thing, we went off about Jimmy Dore and Majority Report today with when I was on with Jamie Peck, Matt Leck, Emma Vigland, and Brendan Finn. Always love doing Majority Report Thursdays. I don't know if I want to really get into Jimmy Dore right now. Again, we really went on for really long on the show on Majority Report today on it. I will say this about, let me just address what the current discourse is, and that's basically Jimmy Dore wants a vote on the floor, on the House floor, the floor of Congress in general. I think he wants it taken to the Senate too, right? But he wants a vote on Medicare for all. And he's been going after AOC and the squad and basically everyone who supports Medicare for all for not doing this. And it's created a rift on the left. Now, again, I said this in the Majority Report earlier, but I'm all for diversity of tactics. I think it's very important, actually, for the left, for people on the left to have different ideas on how to go about things. They create good conversations. It helps, I think, formulate different ideas when it comes to strategic measures, direct actions. And I do see a point to a vote on the House floor, but I also see a point to not doing a vote on the floor. We talked about earlier today about how a vote, to me, the best argument against it, and that's because first of all, Jimmy Dore is his whole reason for having this vote is basically he says to his belief is that by getting our elected members of Congress to vote on a position on the record for Medicare for all would be extremely helpful. It puts them on the record. We know who to go after and who not to go after. And perhaps if someone votes against Medicare for all, they'll have to deal with the repercussions of that. I see what he's saying. But there was a great point made. I forgot who made it. I think Matt Leck made it earlier today on Majority Report. And that is that if a vote is going to fail, which a Medicare for all vote would almost assuredly fail, then we see this all the time. People just vote for a bill as just a show. Just basically like a theatrics, political theater. Knowing it's going to fail. Case in point, Kamala Harris voted for the Senate's Medicare for All bill and supported it and was a co-sponsor of Bernie Sanders because she knew it was going to fail, obviously. We now know she's not supportive of Medicare for All. When she ran in the primaries, she backed off of it and had her own version of a healthcare bill, which is not Medicare for All. So it's sort of pointless. And then the overall thing is that even though Jimmy Dore has all these good faith reasons for it, which some of them I agree with and I think could be helpful, and I see the positive aspects of it, knowing what we know about Jimmy Dore and who he's going, and the show is who he's going after. That's the tell right there. Going after AOC and the people who support Medicare for all for this. He's just doing this to get attention. I mean, he's been trending on Twitter. There's a whole rash of leftists who don't really, there's the dumb left groups, the conspiratorial left, the post leftists. I'm sure are into this as well, who are perfect fodder for Jimmy Dore's line of thinking here, and he uses it to get eyeballs on his show. Yeah. I think Jimmy Dore is someone who, if there wasn't so much bad faith behind what he says, I think there are certain things he says that I could be on board with. There's also a hell of a lot of things that I think he's not very good at a lot of the analysis. I think he's in above his head. And that's fine. If you host a show like this, you get a guest on to talk about it, or you just say you don't know, you aren't sure about something, and you don't go into a topic, or you don't cover a topic, or you don't cover aspects of a topic you don't know. You get on someone who knows more about it than you. But there's a lot of issues he goes off on that he just gets wrong. And he doesn't care to correct the record when he does get it wrong. Look at the Seth Rich thing. It was just, that I don't really want to get too much into it at this point. I do think he's sometimes clever. He sometimes makes witty points, and I'm all for that. I see why people like him. I just think here's my biggest issue with him. He doesn't take responsibility. As someone who does this, if I got something wrong, I would at the very least correct the record. I would come out and let you guys know where I got it wrong and fix it. I've done it before in real time. I've told you guys when, that's not what I meant, or that said something wrong, or, someone just sent me new information and let me fix that, let me correct that. Or I had a guest on. Like, I know a bit about peer-to-peer, but nowhere near as much as Emmi does. And so I had Emmi on to get deeper into it. Something I couldn't do on my own, to be quite honest. And you guys know I go off and sometimes do solo shows when it comes to some of this tech stuff. Peer-to-peer is one of those areas where I wouldn't do that. Wesley says, you are gaslighting now, Matt. Stop being a tool. Progressive Dems have leverage to deny Pelosi and Dem establishment a majority vote in the House to demand the concession. They won't demand anything. But what's the point of it? What do you think happens? To demand the concession to what? They vote for Medicare for all. It gets voted down. It's gonna get voted. It would lose right now. It's just that simple. And if it did somehow manage to pass the House, it dies in the Senate. 100%. We're not there yet. It's just the truth. I'm sorry. But see, here's the thing, though. Wesley, what you just said to me now, this is a good conversation. This is a good debate. I think this is healthy. You just gave, I don't know about the gaslighting now, Matt, part. That's a little bit, stop being a tool. That's unnecessary. But your discussion, progressive Dems have leveraged to deny Pelosi and Dem establishment a majority vote, and the House demand the concession. Okay, I think that's a fair point to make. I don't agree with it, but that leads us to a conversation. And I think that's overall what makes for a healthier left, to be quite frank. But Jimmy Dore is just raging right now. I see him just yelling and saying, fuck you, AOC, fuck you, the squad. What happens there? where does that, where does that lead to us? Where does that bring us? And listen, AOC and the squad are far from our enemies. Please, AOC is one of us 100%. That's another thing. He is trying to sow this sort of distrust with AOC. Again, you could criticize some of her positions. You can criticize her strategy. You could think she's wrong. Again, that diversity of tactics, I think, makes for a healthy movement. But to act as if she's someone that she's not, that she's been, I don't know, that she's been brainwashed by the establishment and she's now working for them, that's just not true. She's completely explained her position and why she is where she is, and it makes total sense. Even if you don't agree with it, it makes sense. There are things that I don't agree with that make sense. That's just her position right now. You want to have a conversation with her? Then have a respectful conversation with her and try to get her to move her position. But going on a rant about fucking AOC is an establishment hack now, what does that do? And that's really the core of it. My issue with Jimmy Dore. If he just brought forth his idea about Medicare for all and advocated for it, I see the positives in that. But then he does this whole thing that's all for show and to get eyeballs on his channel and his content. That's where it's clear to me that that's what it's about. There's a way to go about it. And I don't think he goes about it in good faith. Wesley says, I got that information from Jimmy Dore's show. He had Ryan Grimm on to talk about this. Ryan Grimm agrees with Dore. Yeah, and guess who doesn't agree with Ryan Grimm and Jimmy Dore? Someone, let me throw someone else out there. David Sirota, Bernie Sanders' former speechwriter. Are you going to say he's a sellout? He was one of the prime advocates for the left during the primaries. He took so much shit from the establishment. In fact, I used to give him props for his laser focus on realizing that Joe Biden was the threat, while everyone else was focused on Pete Buttigieg or Elizabeth Warren or Amy Klobuchar. He had a laser focus on Joe Biden and Joe Biden's advocacy for Social Security cuts. And he ended up being right in terms of who he was going after. Are you going to say Dave Sirota is a sellout after all the shit he's taken from establishment for just being one of Bernie Sanders and the left's most hardcore supporters and advocates? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. There are people on the left who agree and disagree. That's fine. And Ryan Grimm, I think, is disagreeing with those tactics from AOC and Dave Sirota in good faith. He's not doing it for the clicks or for the outrage factory. He puts out very good information and content. He does great reporting. I don't what like if you let's put this aside because you're getting distracted by this because that's not my issue with Jimmy Dore. My issue with Jimmy Dore isn't the Medicare for all thing. It's how he's going about it. Tell me what good comes from saying fuck AOC and the squad. What good comes from Jimmy Dore doing that? What's going on in the chat? What's all these Fs? I missed something. Wesley says, look it up. Sirota says he agrees with Jimmy, not disagrees. Wait, what? No, that's... Are you sure about that? They was just a complete... now you're distracting me on this. Okay, so you're right that David Sirota says that he agrees with the House floor vote. But what was his issue with Jimmy? See, I was wrong. There you go. I was wrong about that. I misunderstood the issue. But they're having a battle. What's the battle with David Sirota about? Oh, here you go. David Sirota. Notice that Jimmy Dore cuts off my video right when I literally said I totally agree with you and how you are framing the issue and the choice. The dude literally cut off the video of me saying that. I've dealt with dishonest people, but this is absurd. He got busted on it, then apologized, then now puts out a video literally editing out me saying I agree with him. This is just so incredibly dishonest and bad faith. To deliberately edit a video and cut off my quote about agreeing with him and then bash me on that point is gross. It's the definition of malicious misinformation. So you're right. I was wrong about where David Sirota stood in the Medicare for All, but I was right about the Jimmy Dore thing. David Sirota is backing me on Jimmy Dore. It's all about the content, drama, and the clicks for him. Here you have someone who apparently agreed with his take, but Jimmy Dore wanted to create some sort of drama. James says nothing wrong with editing. Yeah, nothing wrong with editing if you're doing it to cut time and consolidate something. If you're editing to change what someone said, then that's the very definition of malicious misinformation. You edit to make things more concise, but you don't change the content of what someone's saying. If I go on a rant about how I support Bernie Sanders, and you basically cut my 10-minute rant about supporting Bernie Sanders down to a 1 or 2 minute rant about me supporting Bernie Sanders, that's fine. But if you take my 10-minute rant about supporting Bernie Sanders and cut it down to a 1 or 2 minute rant about me hating Bernie Sanders, then that's not fine. Edward says people are fine with the premise of Dore's vote, but want them to leverage for something aside from Medicare for all. Yeah, that seems to be the gist of the whole situation, right? Most people are against the vilifying of AOC and the squad. Most people who aren't Jimmy Dore fans, it seems. Wesley says Sirota's first surrendered his only bargaining power of withholding a vote. Based on false pretense that the GOP gained seats by a plurality. After Sirota came back, he conceded that point and agreed to withhold. Okay, so actually he wasn't always for it then. And then he came around to it. So that must have been what I saw. But again, thank you for correcting me on that. Alright, but let's move on from the Jimmy Dore thing, because I really don't want to talk too much about it, and we're already way beyond where I wanted to go. Members are getting a ton today, aren't they? But that's good. Always happy to give the members more. So let's get to the fun thing. Let's end this show on a fun note. If this is the last show before the holiday... Oh, Nick with a super chat says, yes, I love that take on Jimmy. He is just angry, and it is a very bad look. I don't even mind anger. I can't believe I'm back on this, but I don't even mind anger, but it's got to be in the right place. What's the point in getting so angry and putting all that effort on people who support Medicare for all? What if Jimmy took that time and got so angry and got all of his fan base so angry at the people who don't support Medicare for all? We know who doesn't support Medicare for all without a vote. You go after them right now. Build that movement. All right, but let's move on. So here's the fun thing. Again, this is where we're moving on from politics. Let's have a fun little moment here as we end the show. So, as I said, as I hinted before, there was going to be a fun part that has to do with my love for soda and the Insane Clown Posse. And I don't know if you guys were ready for how gross it's going to be either, but here we go. So, and I had so much fun, again, with the little off-the-cuff stuff about what's going on here that I decided, let's do more of that stuff. So, here's the beginning of that. So, as you all know, I moved recently. And upon moving to a new apartment, we came across these two bad boys. Let me hold them up for the stream here. 2 bottles of Diet Faygo root beer. Let me hold it back here so you guys can see it better. Now, for those of you who don't know, Faygo is the drink of choice for juggalos. Insane Clown Posse loves Faygo. They actually bathe people in Faygo for at their shows. At their live shows are a lot of fun. I've been to Insane Clown Posse shows before. And here's the thing. Now, when we moved, we came across these. I had forgotten about them. Now, where did we get these bottles of Faygo? They don't sell them in New York. This is not a New York drink. We got them. When I say we, my partner and myself, my significant other and myself, we got them when we went to see Insane Clown Posse. They were opening them up and splashing them all over people. Stuff was going everywhere. Faygo going everywhere. And at the end of the show, they bring so much Faygo that there were bottles left over that we took. And you might be wondering, Matt, did you go see Insane Clown Posse this year before there was no Insane. Insane Clown Posse didn't even do their Gathering of the Juggalos annual fest because of the coronavirus. So what's going on, Matt? Did you get these this year? No, I didn't get these this year. We didn't see the Insane Clown Posse this year. Oh, did you see them in 2019, Matt? No, we didn't see them in 2019. I believe the last time we saw the Insane Clown Posse was a decade ago. So these Faygo bottles we found in our apartment when we were moving that we forgot about are a decade old. So I have here these 2 decade-old bottles of Faygo. Diet Faygo, I should say. Now, we're going to toss them. We don't want these bottles of Faygo. Honestly, I would be happy keeping these bottles of Faygo. But we're going to toss them, obviously. Because with 2 kids in the house, there's not much room in a New York apartment for anything we're not putting to use. And 2 decade-old bottles of Faygo aren't being put to use. They are collapsing. Right, that's how old they are. They're collapsing. So I thought, as a fun end-of-the-year stream, why not, live on the stream? You guys know I love soda. I'm a soda aficionado. I'm a soda connoisseur. You've seen me drink all sorts of weird sodas and energy drinks live on this stream, or on the Majority Report. So I thought, why not crack open this decade-old bottle of Faygo, drink it live on the stream, and let you guys know how we're classy here on this show. So I have an aged bottle of Faygo. So I'm gonna crack it open. I'm gonna drink this Faygo bottle, taken from an Insane Clown Posse show a decade ago. And I'm going to let you know how a decade-old Diet Faygo root beer tastes. So let's Let's do this. Let's do this. This will be fun. I think. I hope. Oh boy. Here we go. I'm gonna open it. My worry actually is that this is gonna explode everywhere, so I gotta be careful here. Let me move things out of the way a little bit. I'm shocked it's bubbles. There's bubbles. It's not flat apparently. What am I doing? All right, here we go. I just opened this up. All right, let's do this. All right, here we go. Decade-old Diet Faygo bottle, taken at least a decade old, from an Insane Clown Posse show. It still smells good. I'll be honest, it still smells like root beer. Oh boy, it tastes like shit. It tastes like shit. Oh, it's so flat. I saw the bubbles and thought maybe not. There's no taste. It just tastes like water. Maybe I should have shaken it. Maybe all the root beer flavor went to the bottom. There's no flavor to it. Yeah, I mean, you can smell the root. It really has a powerful root beer smell, actually. And I'm a little bit shocked that with that powerful root beer smell, there's no flavor to it. There's not even. It doesn't taste good because it's just like water with the smell of root beer. I don't know how to describe it. It's just disappointing. Just to really prove that I'm drinking this, I guess I should take a bigger gulp so you can see at least some movement here on the. Oh, now I'm getting some weird flavor. Actually. Something came up from the bottom. It sort of tastes like cleaner now, like a. I need a drink of my regular Coca-Cola. My regular new Pepsi. Yeah, that's bubbly and nice. The Faygo, not so much. Yeah, there you go. That focus. All right. Decade-old Faygo. If you ever wondered how a decade-old Faygo tastes, not good. Not bad. Like, you're not going to throw up by drinking it, but tastes a little bit like water with some weird, I don't know, aftertaste to it. Whoop whoop. Look, to show you I drank it, I really want the proof here. Look how it's, let me get it even. Look how the one here is lower than the one here. Where the drink is. Well, that was fun. I will tell you guys this. There's another. Maybe I'll start doing soda reviews because I was in my fridge, and not as old as this. This is from last year. I found. Funny story. Do you guys remember Jolt Cola? It was an 80s like really caffeinated. Excuse me, I'm burping the Faygo now. A really caffeinated. It was like a soda energy drink, like Coca-Cola if it was super caffeinated, like even more so than it is. Jolt Cola. And they came back in like 2017 or 2018 after being gone for years. And last year I was traveling in Jersey and I came across like a soda shop, like that has a ton of, and I love these sort of places. They're like hard to find sodas, and they had some Jolt Cola, and I bought one and I put it in the back of the fridge and I forgot about it. And this is just like a about a year ago now. And the other day, my significant other is walking around drinking a Jolt Cola. I'm like, what are you doing? Do you know what happened to Jolt Cola? They went out of business again. That's it. That's probably one of the last Jolt Colas in existence. So she gave it back to me. It's cracked open, but it's not. There's most of it's there, and I put it in the fridge, covered it up with covered it the best I could, and put it back in the fridge. So why don't I do this? I save it. Next week I'll let you know how one of the last Jolt Colas in existence tastes. Wait, Mighty Mouse, you still have Jolt in Denmark? All right, I need you to do this. I'm gonna need you to send me some Jolt Cola. The funny thing is, I saw her drinking that Jolt Cola, and I went online because I knew they weren't selling them anymore. And I saw like someone on eBay was selling a bottled Jolt Cola for $50, and I was like, "You just drank a $50 soda." Keegan says, "Oh my God, just let her drink it." Listen, I'm not one of those people. Whatever I put in the fridge in this house, obviously, anyone, my kids, my significant other, she could drink it, eat it. It's open to everybody. But I distinctly remember being like, "Whoa, a Jolt Cola went out of business? You got to save that Jolt for me." And she drank it, or at least started drinking it. Dorian says he barely drank any, talking about the Faygo. All right, you gonna play that? You knew I'm gonna do it. You know I'm gonna do it. If you're gonna play that game, you know it's gonna happen. I mean, you're gonna do that then. Oh shit, so bad. All right, now. I definitely drank. I mean, obviously, I didn't drink a lot of it, but it's below the usual. It's well below the usual. Now, I'm trying to even it up, so there you go. There's no question about it now. All right, guys, this has been a really fun show. Always a pleasure. There'll definitely be another show before the end of the year. There'll probably be 2 shows before the end of the year. We just got 2 more patrons. David, Joshua, thank you so much, the 2 of you, for becoming a patron. I gotta ask, was it the Faygo? Was it the chugging the Faygo? Do I need to do that more often? Because then I'll be happy to. Oh man, everyone in the chat's going nuts about me drinking the Faygo. Oh boy. Someone said we need, where is that? Please, Edward says, please stop, Matt. We need you to make it to 2021. Listen, for all we know, Faygo could provide me immunity to COVID. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, but in general, I do want to do more stuff on this channel. I think it does help. You know, even the Young Turks do offbeat, non-political show clips and stuff on their show, right? They do segments about random stories and stuff, and I wouldn't make it so random, like the clickbaity type stuff, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it, to be honest. But I wouldn't do that here. Like, you know, more like I said, I think I mentioned it. I'm probably gonna let you guys know. I'm probably gonna do a review about these green screens. I showed you last week that I bought a bunch of green screens off Amazon. and I wanted to compare them because not all green screens are the correct green screen color. And I thought that'd be interesting to take a look at. Because I know a lot of people want to stream and do stuff, so that could help people know what to get. Also have to set up this new mic still. If I tell you guys, remember the desk I told you about? Here, I'll give you guys another look. I still have this desk. My new desk just came. See, here's still the green sheet of paper for the green screen to hide the desk. The L-shaped desk that's too long. The new one just came. I haven't had a chance to set it up yet. But yeah, that will be happening, and then I'll get the better mic set up, and then I'll have a nicer thing going on here. Put up the acoustics on the wall. Things are really coming together for this show. And again, couldn't do it without patrons. You're the reason why I'm able to. Again, someone donated this mic to me. The new the Shure MV7. Here, I have the box with me. I have the box with me this time today. It was a fan sent this to me. Oh, look at that weird. Hold on, let me get that away. That's unnecessary. That weird mask. This is quite the microphone. This is like a $250-something microphone that someone donated to me when I told them I was having issues in my new apartment since moving, because I'm in a small space now. It's a separate space, thankfully. I have a little studio, but because it's smaller than where I used to do the show from, my voice was hitting the walls and bouncing off of it, and this mic fixes that without the acoustics. But I'm still going to put the acoustics to make it even better, but I couldn't do it without people who support this show, and that includes even you patrons who give 5, 10, whatever you give every month. It really makes the difference. And Louis, is it Louis or Louise? I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong. Thank you so much for just becoming a patron right now. This has been incredible. What a way to start to hit the mid-December mark with 1 to 2 shows left this year. Growing the patron on the way to that 200 mark. Really, really awesome. Anyway, this was fun. And thank you guys so much for supporting this show. Keegan says, LOL, Matt just starts a review channel. I actually have been thinking about doing a review channel, but this, I don't have a big, like, I'm just barely have time to run this channel. I can't imagine starting a second channel. So I probably would do a review channel. I wouldn't do random stuff. I mean, I guess the soda is pretty random, right? But to me, like, talking about the mics and stuff, that's important for people who want to start doing their own stuff. And I've really pushed for people, if you want to start a podcast, you want to start a live stream, you want to talk politics or give your opinion, there's no reason you can't do that. Do it. I will support it. I will have you on the show. You could drop the link and let people know and promote it. I've done it before for upcoming shows and new shows. So I look at it that like an extension. I have a bunch of really cool stuff here to review, actually. Stuff that I've purchased thanks to patrons that I'm setting up for this, and also from my work. I review stuff sometimes because for Mashable I cover, along with the usual political and tech intersection stuff, and the misinformation beat and the online conspiracy beat. I do actually cover the creator market in terms of video creation, podcasting, and live streaming for Mashable. And I've been sent some, not quite the MV7 here from Shure, but I've been sent some really cool stuff that I probably would review on here. Why not, right? All right, guys. Thank you so much for. Oh, Louis says thanks. Do a wrestling pod. I've been talking about this with David Bixenspan about possibly doing a wrestling show. I actually do have a separate YouTube channel that I don't post to anymore, but I should start posting to it again. That's a wrestling show, a wrestling channel, and it's actually got more subscribers than this channel. It was given to me by someone who built it up, and they weren't using it anymore. And I was like, oh, I'll do stuff with it. And I started posting there. I did some streams with David Bixenspan on there. But then I sort of dropped it. I should get back into the wrestling thing. I mean, I still watch wrestling. Renee says you should get a mailbox for us to send stuff. Well, that'd be cool. You're right. I should do that. I should get a P.O. box, right? That's a great idea. All right, guys. I'll see you again next week. The week after. And then we have a whole slate of doomed for 2021. You know, it's gonna be quite the hope we have a good year. I hope everyone has a better year. But I guess we'll get to that when we get to it, right? Let's take one day at a time. I gotta read this comment from Banana Slugs about what I did to my significant other, my partner, about the Jolt Cola. So selfish. You didn't let her drink the soda, and you didn't even drink it. Yeah, that's true. That's very true, Banana Slugs. I wonder who Banana Slugs is. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Great show tonight. A lot of fun. It was really tons of fun. Great guest. And then a great second half. A fun second half. I will see you all next time on Doomed.